Hello, my name's Hannah Goodyear and I run a company called Kitchen Queen. We offer cooking lessons and cooking parties in your own home. So I'm here today with Veronica and we are going to make lots of goodies in preparation for a dinner party that she's hosting. Okay, so first of all we're going to make a marble cake today. I know you're quite keen on cake making and quite keen on you're quite keen on making marble cakes. It's something you've never tackled.
Yes.
And I would say to anybody, if you can make a decent sponge cake, then the options are endless, because you can, of course, instead of, in this case, using chocolate and vanilla, you could use coffee and vanilla, or you could use all one flavour rather than marbling it, or lemon, orange, coconut, loads and loads of different options.
Well, it always looks so professional when it's been marbled. It looks as though it's much more artistic. But
it's a bit different.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's lovely. So first of all, like any basic sponge cake, we'll cream together 220 grams of caster sugar and 220 grams of butter. And you could use margarine, but I think butter's quite nice for the buttery flavour. So tip that into there. And then, if I can ask you to whisk that together, and we're aiming for a really nice light and creamy consistency.
Does it matter which?
You can go quite high. Yeah. Okay, so that looks lovely and creamy. You can see that. We have 220 butter, 220 sugar, we've got 220 flour, we also want 220 grams of eggs.
Right. So
it should be around 4 eggs, might be slightly more, so we can always pinch a bit of another egg.
Is that right?
So in this case we only need 4. If there were smaller eggs you might find you need 5.
Right.
So if we beat those together, so they were 229 grams and 9 grams is about a teaspoon of eggs, so that's absolutely fine. If it was much more than that, then we could take out some of the egg so that it's as close to 220 grams as possible. And then we'll add in a little bit of egg at a time, whisking as we go, and then with the last bit of egg we'll sieve in a small amount of flour.
Yes.
Are you vanilla people?
I think so.
Yes,
I think
we'll add a couple of capfuls of vanilla in with the egg.
Gives it a bit of a lift, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. But if you were adding other flavours, then you could leave out vanilla.
And how important is it to get this egg really sort of light and fluffy and
it doesn't really, I wouldn't say it doesn't really matter. Yeah,
right.
So that's fine. It's really just to break your eggs up so they're easier to add in. So,
and then the temptation is always to put just a little blob too much to go too quickly.
Yes,
Does it matter? Or?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You can find that it will look a bit curdled. If it starts to look like it's curdling, just add in a little bit of flour. But slow and steady is better. Although having said that, there's an all-in-one method where you literally go down your list of ingredients and put everything into the bowl, give it a whisk, and then turn it into a cake tin. And I have to say, if you just want a cake for that day or tomorrow and it's likely to be eaten fairly quickly, that's fine. That doesn't really matter. So,
Just like this?
do you want me to So
great teamwork.
I know. Really, there was 2 of us in the kitchen all the time. Cake a day. So I've stopped whisking quite briskly with the last bit of egg that Veronica added. So with that, we'll sieve in the flour, which I've salted in with your flour. And that's not because you want a salty cake, but it will just bring out the flavour in the cake, which sounds daft, but it does work.
No, it's always salt and sugar sort of. Salt brings out the sugariness or the sweetness of sugar, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the other flavours as well. So we'll then sift in your flour.
All in one, or?
Yes, yeah, you can go for it. And then, would you prefer to fold with a spoon or would you prefer to whisk with a whisk?
Well, I assume that folding with a spoon is the way you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, we can fold with a spoon. If you are in a hurry though, you can just dip your whisk in.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's do it then.
Yeah, it doesn't make an awful lot of
difference. That's interesting because that's one of those myths.
I know.
You have to fold. Yeah. If you over whisk, you'll. What happens? You over whisk and you lose.
If you, especially, I have a KitchenAid. If you, for example, just left that whisking for 10 minutes and you got sidetracked, then you might end up with a slightly flatter cake because the gluten in your flour gets worked and then it becomes quite stringy, which gives you, it sounds silly, but more of a tough cake than a light, fluffy cake. But a brief whisking will be absolutely fine. We'll just run the spatula around the edge to push everything down. And then, go for it.
Good. And on a slower one, do you think, because of the...
Yes, well, just so as you don't create an avalanche. So that is a beautiful cake mixture. It's not at all split, which is brilliant.
What would split be?
It would look quite curdled. It can look quite curdled. And that generally seems to be if you've added your eggs too quickly. Or it can also be if your eggs are very cold and the rest of your ingredients are warm. So some people will say ideally keep your ingredients at the same temperature.
Yeah.
I have to say though, even if this looks slightly curdled, I wouldn't worry. I would still cook it.
Yes.
And I would say you probably wouldn't notice the difference when it's baked. It doesn't make that much difference.
That's reassuring then.
Yes, yeah. So, the only other thing we'll add into there is a little bit of milk. So now we'll add 2 tablespoons of milk, and that will just keep our cake, or make our cake slightly more moist. We'll give that a brief whisk in, and then we'll divide the mixture into 2, and we'll add cocoa to 1/2.
Right. And that's when the marbling starts happening.
Yes.
Magic marbling.
Brilliant. So, if we just let's whiz that off of the mix. So you can see our lovely cake mix. That is a Victoria sandwich cake mix basically. So you can split that between 2 sandwich tins and that will give you a lovely Victoria sandwich. You could add a shot of coffee in there for coffee cake and perhaps some chopped walnuts or a couple of spoonfuls of desiccated coconut and some orange zest. That's a nice combination. Lots of options. But we will, for marbling, we're going to divide that roughly into 2. We'll put half of the mixture in there.
Right.
And then we'll add cocoa to 1/2 and then we'll dollop it into our cake tins in alternate dollops and marble.
Okay.
Well, over to you.
Right. So, can I work out what is the half?
Oh, don't worry too much. And if you're making this for children, you could, by all means, add different flavours to either half. Perhaps vanilla to one, lemon to the other, whatever their favourite flavours are.
Usually chocolate and chocolate.
Yes, yeah.
If I have any memories.
But you could also, or chocolate and coffee is quite nice. So you've got one mocha side and one coffee side, one chocolate side. Yeah, that's great. Or for children, you could do, dare I say it, pink and purple or green and blue and marble it.
Of course, just use food colouring.
Yes, yeah. I think coloured cakes are quite fashionable at the moment. And you can get some natural food colourings. You don't have to use all the numbers. So into 1/2, whichever you prefer. Should we do this one?
Yeah.
If we sieve in your cocoa powder. Take your spoon out of the way. So that's a couple of tablespoons of cocoa powder. We were quite generous with our tablespoons. If you like it slightly less chocolatey, you can use less, or if you like it more, you can use more. Because the cocoa powder will dry this mixture out a little more than this mixture that has no cocoa, we'll add just an extra splash of milk. And cocoa is actually really good for you, be it raw cocoa or cacao or cocoa powder. Lots of antioxidants.
Oh, well, we need antioxidants.
So you don't need to feel bad. And then we'll add just another spoonful of milk into this half.
Right.
And then just give it a brief whisk to combine, or a fold if you're doing it by hand. It clearly whisks. Oh, we can always give them a big bang.
Don't want to touch your fingers, oh no.
Oh no, that's okay. Right, so we've lined a tin, just roughly, with some greaseproof paper, and then we've just greased it with a bit of butter and shaken some flour. So just shake it around and then you can bang out any excess. You don't always have to grease and flour. It's a silly habit that I've got into since I was little, but I think it's not a bad habit to get into unless you know that your baking parchment is siliconized. Sometimes it's not, and there's nothing worse than making a lovely cake and finding out that you can't get it out of the tin.
Yes, it's very frustrating, isn't it, the last moment?
Yes, yeah. So all we'll do is do alternate dollops of the mixture. Chopped up and we'll use that spoon.
Okay, you do one, I do another. How about that? One. What, just on the top or next to? Or?
Yeah, all over the tin. We'll kind of, if I go in all four corners.
How interesting. Wow.
Just to make sure that you've got no holes underneath.
Right.
And then roughly smooth it out with your spatula. Don't worry about marbling it so much just yet. And then we'll...
This isn't a very good spatula. I think it gets too much stuck in here. Yeah. Oh no, that's still not the one I think. There's.
We've all got our favourites.
It's weird, isn't it? How does that?
Yeah, that looks good. Perhaps if I turn it round, just push a bit more down this end, perhaps. Oh, sorry. And then we'll use the end of a knife or a spoon or the tip of a knife, and then just go around and marble it slightly, like any old.
Oh, just squiggly.
Yes, yeah.
Any old. So it looks as though it's just a really easy squiggle. But
yeah.
Is it really?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Perfect. And then we'll pop that in the oven.
Oh wow. Are they more decorative squiggles than others, or does it all come out?
If you want it more pronounced, you can. If you want more pronounced blobs of chocolate and vanilla, then you can just do smaller blobs when you put them in the tin.
Oh, right.
So it doesn't require such. It doesn't require spreading out so much. Mm-hmm. But no, it doesn't really matter. There is no. It's the kind of cake that you could make with young children, and it's supposed to be quite a fun cake. So there's no right or wrong in terms of the marbling.
So if you're not very artistic, you can still make.
Oh yes. So you can see that's kind of marbled. Because this is quite, so this tin is probably about 18 centimetres by 22-ish. That won't take too long to cook, probably 30 minutes. If it was a deeper cake, it might take closer to 40 minutes.